Hi, everyone. Emily coming to you today, actually out of the studio because I'm at a conference speaking to other journalists, but I absolutely had to show everyone this video from Donald Trump's first cabinet meeting. So his cabinet's there. Some people who aren't yet confirmed are there. They're on a pretty clear glide path to confirmation, so it's no surprise they were included. But everyone is there, and Elon Musk is there. He's not a part of the cabinet, but Elon Musk talked about his role, about DOGE. Trump commented on all of that as well. So let's get right to this clip of Elon Musk at Donald Trump's first cabinet meeting in front of the press.
We will make mistakes. We won't be perfect. But when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly. So, for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola prevention. I think we all want Ebola prevention. So we restored the Ebola prevention immediately, and there was no interruption.
Okay, so again, that was Elon Musk Wednesday morning at this big first official Trump 2.0 cabinet meeting. Those confirmations that haven't yet come down for Trump's cabinet, as we said earlier, they're on a glide path. They're likely to go down, so it's no surprise to see some of those folks there. They will probably be confirmed. Elon Musk, I should say, added that this is the best cabinet ever. He said that's not a joke. This is basically the best cabinet imaginable. And as we've covered here, it is a very, very interesting cabinet. But Donald Trump also reacted a little bit to some criticisms of DOGE and stood so firmly beside Elon Musk at this cabinet meeting. Let's take a look.
Anybody unhappy with Elon? If you are, we'll throw him out of here. We have a lot of respect for Elon and that he's doing this, and some disagree a little bit, but I will tell you, for the most part, I think everyone's not only happy, they're thrilled.
So there you have it. I think, sometimes what you see in the press is people projecting their personal gripes onto the president or to the chief of staff, someone like Susie Wiles, and saying, what Elon Musk's welcome is starting to wear out. I mean, you can go back to the fall and say, well, here's stories about how Donald Trump or his inner circle is apparently getting exasperated with Elon Musk. There's been a steady drip of those stories that's come out over the course of the last half year, roughly. And I think a lot of times what's happening in those cases is journalist sources are personally exasperated with Elon Musk and have problems with Elon Musk. And they project that into the inner circle. And so these become narratives in the press. And Trump, it's really no surprise that he is standing by Musk. It's really no surprise that the cabinet, it would be ridiculous for anyone in the cabinet, of course, to raise their hand and publicly say, I dissent, in this cabinet meeting. I have a problem with Elon Musk. I am Spartacus. That obviously wasn't going to happen. But even if people do privately have concerns about Elon Musk, and given how eccentric he is, given how many conflicts of interest he has, given the fact that he is basically a convert to the Republican Party, who was, more affiliated with the left for a long time, of course, people are going to have some problems with Elon Musk. The bottom line is they don't have a problem with the end. They may have a problem with the means to that end, but they don't have a problem with the end itself. So as long as those means don't get too offensive to the Trump cabinet or to Donald Trump himself or to his voters, and that's an interesting question, then Elon Musk will be just fine. Now, to the voters, that's really important because obviously Democrats are right now trying to muster a massive public backlash to Elon Musk. Bernie Sanders is on a tour. Obviously, he's an independent senator, but he's on a tour in Iowa and Nebraska recently, drawing really big crowds, talking about ending oligarchy. And Musk and Musk's relationship with this Trump administration is a centerpiece of that. So Musk is actually, I know a lot of people look at this comment where Musk is talking about how we accidentally ended Ebola protections or Ebola funding, and then we restored it really quickly. The conventional wisdom is to sort of roll your eyes at that and be like, I'm sorry, you did what? But I think actually, given that that happened, it's much better for Musk to address it transparently and say we're going to make mistakes. And of course, that would be expected with any virtuous project. You would expect mistakes to be made. But for Musk to just come out and say we made a mistake, that's actually the best that he can do because it does at least bring this pretense of transparency to the table. Now, my big problem with this is I shouldn't say my only big problem with this. One of my big problems with this is I don't think we will know the extent of how these conflicts of interest manifested. In some cases, it could be years. We could find out years later that Musk was, privately self-dealing. It could be someone who comes out years later and says, yeah, SpaceX was involved in this decision about this contract or whatever. You're asking people to put a lot of trust in Musk himself, and with not a lot of self-policing. And that really is my big problem with this special government appointee position that he's in, special government employee position that he's in. It's overseen by the Justice Department, the Attorney General. And Donald Trump has said basically he trusts Elon Musk to self-police. He said, it won't be good for me. It won't be good for him if there are conflicts of interest at hand. But, that is true to the extent that these conflicts become public. So that's, I think, a key part of all of this. But at least in the short term right now, if you're a conservative movement stalwart, if you're someone that came out of the conservative movement, a Brooke Rollins, a Marco Rubio, and what you're seeing right now is the culmination of literally decades of white papers, chicken dinners, boring panels that have fantasized, and I really mean fantasized, about taking the government growth since Woodrow Wilson, FDR, LBJ, Obama, and Biden, if in some cases people would say George W. Bush, and rolling it back. This is beyond the wildest dreams of the conservative movement. So there's really no question about whether people are broadly supportive of it. Again, they may have private reservations, but at this point, the means to the end, and the end being this conservative movement fantasy of restoring power to the states. Some people would say, massive cuts. You hear Trump over and over, and Musk over and over, talking about waste, fraud, and abuse, waste, fraud, and abuse, waste, fraud, and abuse. That's to avoid talking about cutting programs or funding that are just sort of pure benefits, because that doesn't always work well politically with voters. So that's where you see the waste, fraud, and abuse come in. But that's why, this really is an attempt to cut the federal government and restore power. So like with the education department being one really good example, the point there is not to undermine education. The argument from the right, despite what the media says, the argument from the right is to improve education by localizing education. And part of the problem is the right isn't very good at making this argument. Of course, part of the problem also lies with the media that takes Democratic talking points, but that's the case that they actually have to make with voters. And Musk, we've covered this here, I think it's possible ends up doing more harm than good. It hasn't happened, we haven't seen the scales definitively in one direction or the other yet. We've seen a lot of signs, but we don't actually really know how DOGE is going to turn out because we're at such an early stage. And I think there have been a lot of concerning signs. And, Musk being at the cabinet meeting, despite having all of these private sector conflicts and what I think is an insufficient sort of disclosure policing system of whether those conflicts are sufficiently handled. I think that's one of the concerning signs. I think there are some voters who will see this as like an amazing thing and some voters who will see it as a disastrous thing, as a frightening thing, but makes sense, actually, despite the conventional wisdom that Musk is out here saying we are going to make mistakes, because that lends at least this appearance of transparency, like you're leveling with voters. And I think the left really underestimates the power of that. That clip starts circulating on podcasts like this one, and people look at it and say, at least he's being honest about his mistakes. Joy Reid, which is not an apples to apples comparison, but people see this a lot with journalists, with Democrats who claimed that Joe Biden was as fit as ever, whether it was Joe Scarborough or Nancy Pelosi, only to turn on him. People say that like, you've never admitted to me that you were wrong or that you were lying. And so that pretense of transparency, is actually pretty powerful. And I think that's something the left is going to get wrong in all of this. Like I think the optics of the cabinet meeting are probably better than the media is depicting it, even though, there's still obvious problems with the setup. But this is a little bit of my thoughts just reacting to that first cabinet meeting. It's very, very interesting optics to see Robert F. Kennedy Jr. like at a cabinet meeting in a Republican presidency. So there's so many stories that we're watching here and that we'll continue to cover here on Undercurrents. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts, wherever you're watching, YouTube, Rumble, and you can head over to undercurrents.tv, join the community. Actually, we have an extended version of our Victor Davis Hanson interview up there right now. So go ahead and join if you're interested and you want to see all of that. It's just $1 for your first month, and we will be back here with more Undercurrents soon.